So it's not dexterity, it's strategy, guys.
Tired monitor. I can't see anything. Like, it's too dark.
Oh shit!
No! Fuck! What a game, boys. What a game.
Welcome to another job comparison video, this time starring the one and only man or woman with the machine gun. Like its role competition, being a ranged physical DPS job offers significant advantages over the other jobs and roles by a flawless movability and rotational flexibility. However, the Machinist takes this to another level, which leads us to the first reason. Machinist simply is among the easiest jobs out there and at least my second best recommendation when it comes to beginner jobs. What the Bard offered in a slightly better accessibility due to being a true starter job and not having to fall back on level 30 once you unlock this job through its job quest, Machinist compensates that easily, namely by offering an even more straightforward combat system, with next to zero punishment except for bad ping setups. But like I said multiple times, if that is an issue you might consider using services like exit lag or no ping, which can help to reduce server latency a lot. Nonetheless, apart from possible ping issues, the flexibility in your movement is unrivaled, and even that Dancer and Bard share this trait, Machinist feels even more convenient, because of how its rotation is designed and simply having no big cooldown or super important cooldown window to track. So you're not distracted by cast times, positionals or anything that would interrupt your attack sequences and battle flow. Above that, the logical procedure of keeping your big drill, chainsaw and air anchor attacks on cooldown while combining them with reassemble is a very beginner friendly way of learning a job, as you're not forced into any form of cooldown window except for your own potion or the buffs of other party members, which grants a boost in convenience and flexibility when to use stuff. And of course, in high-end optimization scenarios, all these timings become insanely important, but the difference is among the smallest of all jobs, so you could literally just smash in big attacks whenever they are ready, as long as you're combining them with reassemble while sticking to your hypercharge phase in combination with wildfire. Leading to the second reason why Machinist is a phenomenal job. As long as that latency issue has been resolved or you already have a good Ethernet connection, hypercharge is one of the most satisfying battle mechanics any job has to offer. Not only that your heat blast has a reduced global cooldown of 1.5 seconds compared to the usual 2.5 seconds recast timer, it also reduces the remaining cooldown on your OGCD's Ricochet and Gauss round that makes this hypercharge phase feel even faster, and you're reaching peak CPM clicks per minute ratings during this time window. I just love how that feels, and I'm glad that you have barrel stabilizer as well as a direct kickstarter for this phase, while also using your default attacks to generate heat gauge points solidly. I guess the only change I would wish for on this stance is that it deals a bit more damage, because if tracking it on my math student's whiteboard, it seems to fall a bit short compared to the big drill saw anchors, at least when reassemble is ready. But who knows, maybe that is a change planned for the future. The third argument is a bit of a mixed bag, because in theory we have a true selfish DPS job with the Machinist, basically like the Black Mage and Samurai, but with a speed buff for in-between pulls and a defensive roll command that mitigates incoming damage. Yet compared to Bard and Dancer, Machinist pulls off tons of damage just by itself, and at least plays out personal DPS numbers of its melee job competition like Dragoon, Ninja, Monk or Reaper. However, I would still love to see Machinist being slightly closer to the Black Mage and Samurai, as it doesn't offer any offensive support to its party members, which somehow keeps the crown untouched for the machine gun man or woman. But I'm absolutely sure that Square will reassemble their ideas of how they want the Machinist to be, and it will get back the strength it is designed for. But anyways, don't get me wrong on this part, as this damage is still among the top numbers in any form of content that is not optimized and where the party setup is constructed to perfection. And the average machinist still outperforms 80% of other jobs with the combination of easy difficulty plus the very solid personal damage output. And if you just want to know one thing, Machinist wipes the table with Dancer and Bard damage, at least when it comes to your own personal damage, that is shown in certain DPS charts. But what about style? Yeah, we cannot leave this unmentioned, right? Because in opposition to the other jobs out there, the Machinist is the only job with technical weapons at its disposal. Especially as all other jobs stick to magic and medieval weapons, Machinist uses science and technical development as its weapon. Yes, these Magitech rounds and armaments are sort of infused with magic, but this is basically science in a world where magic exists, so defying the goodwill of God or godly creatures with wisdom and clarity and scholarship to use physics and laws of nature against your enemies. Above that, you're indeed looking insanely cool by doing so. I know I mentioned that already, but the new scattergun animation is just... But the story actually doesn't end here. The automaton queen that finally replaced the boring auto turret is a true mech that fans of Evangelion, Gurren Lagann or Macross Plus will love to command and use in battle. It is actually hard to describe, but I know that some people will freaking love the Machinist for what it is, and Square did a fantastic job to make it even cooler than you could imagine when hearing the job's name for the first time. Just that flamethrower could be dealing a bit more damage, as it's one of the most badass looking attacks in this game. Okay, last but not least, and actually in a very strange position of this comparison, but I want to mention it here, as it forms a very cool contrast to another aspect: the fast-paced combat system of a Machinist. Yes, like I mentioned alongside the hypercharge phase, but even outside of this window, Machinist feels insanely fast-paced, and will find liking of those players that wanted a ninja or dragoon, but just couldn't enter the melee combat, or that liked how Summoner plays out its flexibility, but felt too slow and boring. Machinist is exactly hitting these spots with little to no downsides at all. It actually feels like a shooter game inside of an MMO due to the whopping 3 stacks on each of your OGCDs that really grant you a machine gun impression, especially during the before mentioned hypercharge phase. Also, being totally flexible inside of your rotation and order of skills forms a symphony of shotgun blasts and chainsaw guns of unrivaled proportions. But now to the contrast I was mentioning. Whenever you step a foot into crystalline conflict or PvP in general, Machinist plays and feels like the exact opposite side of things. Instead of the laser gunner from action JRPGs of the early 2000s, you become a sniper with clear focus on strategic maneuvers and very keen planning how to use your combo rotation and how to utilize your standard attacks that are casts but can be used while walking. Above that, the limit break becomes a one-shot sniper attack that just feels insanely cool to use, as your enemies are not even realizing that you have their lives in your hands. Very cool stuff, and especially in this contrasting relation to its PvP fastness, it is nice to see that another version of the Machinist is alive, and it is tons of fun as well. But of course, like all the other jobs out there, not all Machinists are created equal, so let us dive into some of its disadvantages. First of all, like the Dark Knight or Astrologian, Machinist is in a kinda weird spot for getting started, as you have to unlock Ishgard as well as reaching level 50 with a fighting job of your choice, but instead of continuing there with your lovely gunner, you fall back onto level 30. But unlike the Dark Knight or Astrologian, this is even more of a letdown, because finding groups for quickly recovering these levels can become a pain in the chocobo. However, there are a couple of good ideas how you can push through these leveling ranges very quickly. And I know the one or the other content creator with a whole bunch of leveling guides at their disposal. The biggest issue in my opinion though is that Machinist suffers from an identity crisis, due to being in the ranged physical roster, which naturally is made to support the party, but inside of this deals a significant amount of personal damage and falls close to a samurai and black mage. Unfortunately though, it never reaches these peak DPS numbers, and if I'm remembering correctly, there hasn't been a single patch where Machinist led the top of the chart. But hope dies last, right? So let us keep wishing for the miracle of Mr. or Mrs. Machine Gun, topping out the DPS bracket with impressive gunshots, keen machine gun maneuvers, and the most drip any job has to offer. Until these good times happen, have a wonderful week, stay safe and healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.